Good afternoon, guys, and welcome to the Big Black Clock podcast. I'm Karl, and I'm with Kevin.
Yo.
And Dmitri.
Da.
Today we're going to do a simple one. So we're going to start with a wrist check. And who want to start? Kevin, you want to start with yours?
Yeah. So today I have a few things. I think it's because we're doing this at your place, Dmitri. So I'm wearing on wrist something old, a little vintage, 1978 Omega Seamaster. So it's the caliber 1022. So it makes it more unique. It's a day date. And it has an integrated bracelet. So very feel of a date just. And the integrated bracelet really, I don't know, it just gives it that, satisfies that integrated bracelet that I guess we're all really into. And it's what's really hot right now in the market. Like everyone's making an integrated sports watch, bracelet sports watch.
Is that an automatic also?
Yes.
Nice.
No manual wind. 37 millimeters, has that raised, crystal, and very thin, for an automatic, you see. So, really great condition. Took me a good 6 months to find a good one online, or, shopping, and you find one that wasn't Frankenstein. People didn't, tear it up for, replace the pieces. So, and later on, I'm sure in other stories, we'll talk about like vintage stuff and what to know and marketing stuff. So buyer beware. Took me a while, but definitely a keeper.
Which year is it?
1978. So
nice.
If you look that one up, it's
it's very nice.
One. I also have brought for you to see Seiko Sumo, the coral blue, with a strap code bracelet. So I could have worn it on both wrists, but I thought, it'd be coming in a little hard to be double fisting on the Big Black Clock podcast episode 1. Just might be a lot.
Yeah, you might want to watch for that on the first podcast ever.
And then the last thing I have is this really cool new ring I got from AHW Studios, which has a 1940s Swiss movement in the actual ring itself. And it's actually really unique.
Is it a working movement or?
No, it's there's nothing powering it, but it's complete, absolutely, as you can see. And they're from Australia.
What's it called?
The studio is AHW Studio. Really, really suggestive. So all I can say is the quality of their product is excellent, and they have gold rings, they have silver rings, and then they put in you can see different types of movements. They have some more affordable ones.
They even made an exhibition case back there.
Yeah, they did.
It's amazing.
It's really amazing.
The detail are pretty good.
I think it's pretty cool. And they're like a small group. The guy's very in touch with his stuff and family business. So it's like him and his family that runs it. So it's really cool, a little accessoire. So coming in hot, episode 1, yeah.
So the next step is the cufflinks, right? With movements?
Cufflinks, the same company. They have that too in that company, yeah. Definitely, definitely. Maybe, we'll see. There might be much.
Do they have anything that's actually working, or it's all kind of just for...
I don't actually know. Let me check. HW Studio. They have any working watches?
That's pretty cool. I don't think I've ever seen this before.
It's like an industrial jewelry, steampunk. No, I think it's jewelry. Timepieces. No, they have watches. Handcrafted. Oh, no, they carry the brand that you like a lot, Karl. Rec watches from Denmark. So what's the deal with them again?
So Rec, the thing is they buy metals from either crash plane, crash cars, wrecks, right? And they use them for dials or parts of the watch.
So this one is made from recycled...
A Mustang.
Ford Mustang.
Oh, yeah.
So the dial was part of it. So, and they have a bunch of watch. Their biggest seller is based on a Porsche 901.
Yeah, this one says 1966, yeah.
Yeah, and they have two with minis, classic mini rovers, so the old minis. And it depends. Like some of them, even they use the metal of the gas tank, so they're all like there's a weird patina to them because they're full of fuel, right? So it's different. And they just launched a new watch. It's the RWB edition. So RWB being a huge tuner of Porsche in Japan. And if you like Porsche, you know what RWB is. And so it's Nakai-san. They took his own car, cut a fender out of it to use that metal.
So for people who don't know what RWB is, what is that?
It's if I told you like Saleen, right, for Ford, it's a brand who modified a brand specifically. So RWB is
this like an AMG or a Brabus for Mercedes when they do a custom?
In a way, it's way
models?
more smaller. It's a one-man show, but the brand is recognized worldwide.
Okay.
So do you guys know Bamford in watches? So what this guy does is he takes certain watches and he has his own shop. And it's that Bamford edition is like, I'm sure you've seen Tag Monaco's, Warrior Monaco, where they're like entirely blacked out and they look like they have carbon fiber.
Yeah, I saw that.
And Rolex is completely DLC coated black with blue hand markings and stuff. I
think so.
So is it similar to that?
Well, yes and no. Because he's mostly doing bodyworks. So yeah, in a way, it's aesthetic, right? He's not touching the engine, but he does have tuned engine. So the cars, RWB Porsche, it's unique. We have 2 of them in Canada that I know of. And it's really expensive to have one because you have to fly the guy out of Japan to your shop.
Well, there's 2 in this entire country.
Yeah.
Must be expensive.
Yeah, but you have to fly Nakai to your shop. And it's like, I think it's like $100,000 you have to pay up front to get the guy here and make your car better in some ways.
So
marginally.
So, we're just talking about Bamford. Because we have a common watch chat that we chat in, right? There was that posting someone shared of the Tag Heuer with coffee, right? That
coffee dial.
Yeah.
This isn't a tag. This is a Bamford version of a tag. And he does it like, so pull out some of his watches here. There you go. They're all like totally blacked out, DLC, crazy blues, and different brands, right? And apparently they're customized luxury. I mean, if you have to modify, a Bulgari Octofinissimo,
right,
must have disposable income.
It's fuck you money.
F you money, yeah. Exactly like that.
And F stands for fuck.
Exactly. But this guy has Zeniths, GPs.
And are they very popular, as in hard to get?
Well, these are available right now, but Bulgari Octofinissimo. So let's do the math real quick.
It looks like they're following a very similar style, right?
Yeah, his style.
It's all the same color scheme.
Yeah, but he did some Rolexes even. Like he has some Rolex Bamford edition, but it's a whole bunch of El Primeros, and he has his own watches as well. He does do his own watches.
Okay.
Dmitri, what are you wearing today?
So today I'm wearing my Omega Speedmaster Esselite Moonwatch, the most original one there is, today, that you can buy. That's not a vintage one.
Or the 321.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I guess an argument can be made about that not being as original, let's say, as this one. But they both have something that's more original to the watch that was on the moon, right? That one has the movement and maybe has a bracelet that is more similar, let's say, to the original one. The price tag certainly isn't.
Yeah, exactly.
But at the same time, it has an exhibition caseback, I think, to show that beautiful movement, and that is not NASA spec, I think. So there's a few things different. Although that watch is fantastic.
Oh yeah, you're right. I'm looking here at the 321.
Oh, it's a beautiful movement.
Platinum. The 321 here is was the 50th anniversary in 2019, and it's insane.
Yeah, I'm holding this watch right now in my hand. I mean, it's I don't want to say it's my grail watch, but it probably is up there because I don't think I'll ever sell it. This is the watch that I've been looking for buying for maybe 6 or 7 months prior to actually pulling the trigger. I've had it for a little bit over a year now, and I don't think I've started to like it less. I think I'm still in my honeymoon period. That's pretty unusual.
You know what I think is so cool about that watch is that when you take some iconic chrono, you think of Daytona. I don't see the gap at all. I can put that in my mind very evenly with the Daytona for myself. Even more so than, for example, a Zenith El Primero. I just this watch, I find this to me
Yeah.
has more character.
I mean, obviously, I agree because I love this watch, right? And I would take all compliments towards this watch.
But you like the Zenith.
I love the Zenith El Primero as well, yeah. And I obviously love the Daytona. I can't remember. I think there was wasn't there a Heuer, sorry, that was very similar to they were also, it was also a racing watch. They tried to make it to spec, but I guess they didn't win
The Octavia.
Is that the one?
Yeah, well, the Panda offset, and it was very
Right.
We thought it was very thick.
Right. But yeah, I completely agree. This is a watch that I will keep forever. Hopefully, will pass on to future generations. Yeah, there's not much else to say. It's an icon. Karl?
Yeah, me too. So I'm gonna go in the same region as Dima, but space. So today I'm wearing my Bulova. It's the
It is went to space. What are you talking about?
Well,
it's just went to space as well.
I believe my watch went to space.
George Clooney says it does. I clearly see it here on the website.
Haven't you seen Ryan Gosling? He was in space. Brad Pitt was in space. We
Yeah.
had to find Matt Damon. I'm sure he was wearing the Omega at some point.
I'm sure.
And all of those times that he got lost, and then we had to get him back.
A lot of potatoes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, please talk about your uniquely space watch.
I didn't say it was unique. I just said same region as you.
Unique. Unique is a very different thing, eh?
Unique.
Unique New York.
Yeah, so I have my Beloved Lunar Pilot chronograph, if you want to say the full name. And I always mistake and always say it's a Beloved Moon watch. And after that, no, it's the Lunar Moon. And no, it's the Moon Pilot. And I'm always fucking it up.
So there are many variations of that watch. Which one do you have?
Well, the quote-unquote as original, so it's the brush case. I know that there's the matte black and now the polish case, if I'm not mistaken, that you both had or still have.
I don't have the DLC anymore. I do have the polished. And
Yeah.
I kind of regret
Oh, yeah?
selling the black. Yeah, it wasn't getting wrist time. Yeah, I don't know why.
Is your polished one getting wrist time? Because from every single one that I've seen, I think this is my favorite one.
It is getting wrist. Well, depends what you mean wrist. I do have a lot of, not enough maybe that it should, but
Comparing to the other the other two that you've had.
it is getting the most. Yeah.
Okay.
So that was my first real watch. We're going to talk a bit about that later, why, but I can go over some spec. It's kind of big, but I think what make me, why is feeling so big, it's 45 by 52, the case. It's 13.5 millimeters thick, and the lug width is 20 millimeters. So when you look at it, because the lug width is so small versus the size of the case, it look maybe bigger than what it is, and it's top heavy too.
I also think that lug to lug is not that large. It's 52, right?
Yeah.
That's not that bad. There are much larger watches out there.
Yes.
So it sits well for a large watch.
Yeah, I'm not saying it was too big. Just
No. Yeah.
it could look sometimes a bit.
No, but it's funny you say that because I think a lot of people focus too much on the diameter.
Yeah.
And the lug to lug has a huge impact on that. Because if you have a lug to lug that's way too large and a shorter diameter, it'll still overhang. So it depends, because you're a big dude like I am, and so are you even. When you see, like, I'll think of like someone that we know that's much maybe skinnier and taking their wrist, it won't sit
No,
well.
it won't fit.
It won't sit well.
Yes.
I think what I was gonna add is that it might, and I've owned this watch for a little while. I think what it makes it feel like it's a really big watch is that, well, first of all, you have it on a NATO strap, right? That adds a bit of a layer, but also it doesn't have a domed crystal, right? It's a flat crystal, and it
Yep.
sticks out quite a bit. So
Raised.
that really does add a lot to the thickness. It's not a watch you can wear at work. Not that we have to go to work anymore, but it doesn't fit under a cuff easily.
Well, it depends what job you do. Yeah, I guess like what we're wearing a shirt. It'll might have trouble getting under your cuff.
If you're a magician and you wear like a wizard sleeve, then you will be fine.
Well, some people wear t-shirts and polos.
But yeah, prior to this podcast, I was trying to read a bit more about that watch, and it's funny because it's really people are fighting over the backstory of that watch. There's like two main schools for that. It's the one that say that David Scott, the astronaut who brought it to the moon, broke his Speedmaster prior of the launch and run back to some stock room, pick up the first watch on the side that was a prototype that didn't pass the NASA certification. It was the Bulova, and
But did it not pass the certification, or it just didn't win the tender?
so it's Speedmaster who won for a second time. When Bulova was aiming for that contract, Speedmaster already won it once, and it was a second run for the same deal, if you want, and Speedmaster got it again. So in that run was Speedmaster, Daytona, and the Bulova.
The Daytona.
Yeah, for the second contract, if you want, so the second row of that. And well, they don't say they didn't get it, just that Speedmaster got it, right? So, but technically, they never got the certification and they never got the stamp. They went to the moon, but without the stamp, right? So that's the first school. People said that he broke his Speedmaster prior of the launch, went back, pick up that first thing on the side, and left with it, right? And I was reading about it, and the thing is, other people said that he left with his Speedmaster as like he was supposed to do in his personal tool watch, and not personal, the equipment tool watch. And every astronaut have like by weight some personal items they can bring on the shuttles. And Dave Scott, for some reason, nobody really knows why, in his personal items was that Bulova, and it's a prototype that no one else in the world had, but it was his personal watch.
Because fuck that, I don't need pictures of my kids. I'm just gonna take this watch that I didn't make the win, but I'll take it with me.
Could it have been a marketing move by Bulova
That's-
to just get him to bring it to space and then just somehow wear it
Yes.
accidentally?
But
greased him.
Accidentally break his Speedmaster and then wear the Bulova and create
that's
history?
what people are saying online. That's what I said I wanted to talk to you guys about that during the episode.
But who, like, is it on like Omega forums? Are they saying no?
No, so
Lois.
if you go on the Bulova website, they really don't tell the whole story. It's really gray on Bulova website. They're just telling me like we did it, and it's stepping there. And when even you look at the auction of the original one that went to the moon, right? It was no date automatic. The one I have, it's date window. It's quartz. I beat, and even in the when you look at the auction definition, they didn't tell the whole story. There's like huge gaps, and nobody was really sure. They only know that it was his quote unquote personal item because it was able to sell it, because all the Speedmaster for astronauts are NASA owned, right? So when they came back into the lockers. But that was the only known watch in the world that went from a personal collection that went to the moon. And when it sold in 2015, it was for 1.625 millions.
Now, you have a picture open here, and it is a very handsome watch. And I remember it even has like moon dirt on it.
Well, it's rust. It's
Yeah.
patina,
Oh,
right? Because
okay.
it's from the
on the case.
yes, right.
Oh.
And it's the old font if you look at it too,
Yeah, I love that.
right? Yours has the old font.
Yeah.
Mine
And
is the newer font.
And no date.
And yeah, the old one, and mine's as a date, right? So yeah, it's weird. I was reading into it, and there's like no real story, and it's all people thinking he did that, taking it because of that. But yeah, he wore it because he quote unquote popped his isolite of a Speedmaster in the shuttle, but accidentally, and those
With
watch
hammer.
passed the like accreditation, right, to go to
We
the
all
moon.
know those satellites are indestructible.
But it's funny, I was reading about that similar story between Smiths and Rolex that went up Everest. And what there's a claim that a Smiths watch made it to the top of Everest. What's funny about it is that a lot of them argue they never had it on their wrist, the Smith's watch. And he goes, oh no, the Rolex Oyster Perpetual that was worn, because yeah, he had it on his wrist. The Smith says our watch made it to the top of Everest, but apparently the rumor is the guy never had it on his wrist. He actually had a Rolex, but there was a Smith's on him or something,
A backup one.
and they use very specific wording to say, "Oh, we made it to the top." It's like,
That's interesting.
and Rolex says we were the only watch on this one's wrist to make it to the top. It's weird.
It's all marketing, right? The same thing with Bulova. They're really it's like all gray areas when they tell that story. But yeah, so yeah, I bought that watch because of that story. It's kind of funny, and behind the watch, it's all engraved, the dates, even the position when the launch was, and all those things, because they're like, we made it.
Apollo 15.
100%. Like Speedmasters, the reason it's so famous is because of that one time when NASA just decided to approve that watch to be the official watch of all astronauts, right? And that's it. And they hadn't had to change it in 60 years.
And I mean, I don't. There's no need. It's a great watch. I mean, but wouldn't you too? Like, you made it. Even it doesn't matter how you made it. You'd be like, I made it.
No, it's like Coca-Cola.
We were on that.
Don't change it. It's what people want, right?
Put it on a chimpanzee.
I mean, we probably want a 1900 version of a Coca-Cola, but not.
Would you drink it?
I mean, I'm sure it will be tasty.
Tasty's a very broad word.
It will give me a lot of energy, that's for sure.
Yeah, but even today, NASA and SpaceX, they don't use the Speedmaster anymore. They still use Omega. It's an X-23.
Right.
Well, there's a lot of other ones, right? Because I've read some articles about watches in space and stuff, right? You have the Fortis, you have the G-Shocks that are going there all the time, right? So is there a specific requirement to wear a particular watch, or people just bring whatever they want?
I think it depends on the space program.
Yeah, I think it's the like this. I'm guessing an engineer that's there to build the equipment, and they just go through a list. And when you get to the watch or the timekeeping device, you just choose one, and the whole team goes for that mission has that watch.
So my brother lives out in Belgium, and there's a brand and relatively and very affordable. There's some very cool watches. Is Gavox. So if you look at their offerings, they have one that looks exactly like, let me look it up here, the Zin 103, and it's called the Gavox Squadron, if ever anyone's looking. And I think it's pretty under the radar. But believe it or not, you go, okay, does this watch carry any, look at that, it looks just like the Zin 103, right?
Yeah.
And this thing is a quartz. It's $450 US here, right from them. And this thing is used by the Belgian Air Force. Gavox is their official supplier. Just like the Ministry of Defense with CWC that you own, there was a time they said, okay, we need to start cutting down how many can have them. And now, just now in the news, in the last few weeks, Yema has the contract for the French Air Force, right? I don't even know how to say it. The Air Force. So, yeah. But you were going to say something about CWC.
Yes, the RAF.
The Royal Air Force.
Yeah.
Or a lot of people say MOD, the Ministry of Defense.
Yeah.
I was really looking at what other watches, right? The Royal Air Force Chrono. I think those are Seiko Royal Air Force Chrono.
Oh,
That I was trying to find, but it's like a $2,000 watch, and it's really not a good watch. It's all about just the history, right?
Yeah. There are a lot like that.
Beautiful watch, though.
A lot of them. And when you look at some of the offerings that certain companies have, like when you look at the fleece there, the new Breitling Chronomat B01 42 millimeters, that I think is one of the nicest offerings of the year. In a really tough year for watches, but let's find that one.
I think it's a tough year for everyone.
For airlines,
I'm
mostly.
doing pretty good, man. I'm feeling pretty good. I fingers crossed. Health is good.
Yeah, but you work in the tech industry, right?
Yeah, I work in tech, but not in the tech industry.
Okay, so
It's insurance. So yeah.
yeah, okay, so yeah.
So yeah, they're actually they get the best case of the scenario, right?
We
You
don't like
guys,
insurance.
there's no claims.
No claims.
No claims, but people are still paying them. So they just collect money for nothing.
So yeah, I wouldn't say for nothing. Peace of mind.
Ooh, the marketing there.
And you know how much a piece of mind costs, right? It's worth a lot.
Look at this. Look at that new chronomat.
It's beautiful.
It really is great. Look at that.
What's the Breitling, the limited edition they did with the rainbow on it?
The rainbow. So this is the one with the Italian Air Force.
Can you describe it?
The B01 chronomat?
Because you show it to us, but people on the other side of the mic don't have eyes.
So the new chronograph, or the
Don't judge people on the other side of the mic. They might have eyes. They just don't see the things that we're talking about.
the chronomat, what's so great about it is that one thing I like about this iteration, it went from 44 millimeters down to 42. So it's sized like your Speedmaster. The movement is great in this watch. So let's here, just say some of them. Let's pull out these stats real quick.
I'm looking at the screenshots of this watch, and the bracelet is fantastic. I don't even know what it's called.
I don't even know what it's called either. Here, called rouleau bracelet. Rouleau, so.
Oh, right. So it does look like rolls, individual.
But what's crazy about this watch, which you're going to go, are you serious? 200 meters of water resistance.
Well, that makes sense, because the Daytona is also a chrono that has 200 water meter resistance, right?
Yeah.
It's just that there's screw-on crowns, right? And the pushers.
This one is a screw crown.
And
the pushers are
as well.
not screwed.
Okay, well, that is interesting then.
Yeah. That is a misconception. A lot of people think, and for anyone out there who thinks that screw down has impact on water resistance, that's a myth.
Is it really? Well,
yeah.
It's the quality of the seal.
Quality of the seal.
Same thing when you look at cars, right?
You can have a really cheap watch that has a screw down crown, but if the seal is,
right,
questionable.
I guess is that fair to say that it's just cheaper to do a screw down crown than an expensive seal?
That I wouldn't know, because you need to forge your thread for the screw and everything. It's more metal. It's more working on your case, right?
Yikes! I think that might be.
It's more working on the metal versus buying a seal. So I'm guessing it's even maybe pricier to just have a screw down.
I think what it does, though, because it's screwed down, might avoid, if it gets knocked onto something, cracking the stem.
Or accidental push.
That is why you have a crown guard, usually, which is what my Speedmaster has,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Specifically for that reason, right?
And Panerai Luminors. Crazy crown
nice.
That's a crown guard.
Or it's a bezel guard.
Double D crown guard.
It's a crown fortress.
Exactly. Well, I've owned the Blue Alpinist before, right? And you have a regular crown that's a screw down crown, and you have the Compass, which is not a screw down, but it's still 200 meter water resistance.
Yeah. So it just goes to show that, because
fair,
there's nothing to, So that's a myth. I heard that.
I was looking at a lot of Seikos on their website, and a lot of Seikos has pretty good water resistance, and none of them are screw down. I was looking into it, and even when I went to a shop here, I forgot the name, is FH something. And even the salesman there was like, looking at the stats, even he was surprised. He was like, wow, it's not screw down. It was like 100 meters, 150 meters.
100 meters, all those new Seiko 5s that replace the SKX, they're just push crowns, right? They're 100 meters.
And my Speedmaster is 50.
Yeah. But
there's no water in space.
Yeah. There's no need for more than that, for the most part. And you also own a pretty good diver that'll get you where you need to go for your aquatic activities.
I have a question for you guys. So I'm going to ask both of you, and I'll tell my side of the story afterwards. When do you start loving watches? So what was your point A to point watch? Right? There's some reason, right? I don't know if Dmitri, you want to start on this one.
Okay, sure. I was trying to think about it, preparing for this podcast. What is it exactly that got me into watches? And I think it's not something that was very gradual. It's pretty quick. Once you start developing interest in the watches, it basically snowballs. As I remember myself, since I was a kid, I've always had a watch. My parents used to buy me like little Casios and stuff, and at some point I had a Tissot, but I never progressed from just thinking of it as a fashion accessory. At least I wanted to have a Swiss watch, right, that showed the movement and it wasn't automatic. But that was, I guess, as much research that I've done. And I think a catalyst for my love of watches happened, I think, 2 years ago when Kevin, me, and another friend of ours, we were playing with an idea of starting a watch company. Looking at all the Daniel Wellingtons and just all the small micro brands and seeing potential opportunity in this, and also kind of doing this as a hobby. This didn't really work out at all, but what it did is that it forced me, and we had an exercise to do. It forced me to research about watches and try to figure out, let's say, find that specific type of a watch that you would like to build, right, as part of your company. And I spent a few hours. I'd say I'm being conservative. I've spent quite a bit of time just looking at different brands, understanding the market, seeing what types of watches are there, and then looking at different mechanisms and dials and shapes of cases and stuff like that, right? I think that was, from that moment on, it only took a few months for me to really fall in love with watches, because once we stopped really trying to continue with making our company, my interest in researching different watches didn't really disappear. So I gradually started to join all the popular channels on YouTube and reading blogs and stuff. And very quickly, I'd say maybe a few months from that moment, I was like, shopping around online, about to buy my first serious watch that I've researched prior, right? And I think maybe it's true for you guys as well, but we'll see. Whenever you start liking watches, and at least for me, the first type of a watch that I really liked is a minimalist watch, right? So I wanted to have something that is very basic, very clean, doesn't have a lot of functionalities, right? No complications, just a pure dial that's very straightforward, all very rectangle-shaped designs and hands and stuff. Nothing that showed any particular uniqueness or design, right? And obviously that kind of market segment is filled out quite well by all the fashion brands today. And I guess they're realizing this very well, that people usually, when they don't know anything about watches, this is the type of a watch everybody goes after, right? The one that looks good on Instagram posts.
Same thing like Apple, right? They go for an aesthetic, sometimes prior of some tech, right? Apple is known to have the same tech as like Android, but like a year or two afterwards.
But I wouldn't conflate design and timepieces. So I know what you're saying,
But like movement, right?
but like
there's a very interesting comment you made about Apple, and I've read the Steve Jobs' book a while ago, right? He was fascinated by this quote from Da Vinci, which is basically that goes, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication, right? So behind the design is not necessarily something that's very minimalist. It's maximum utility with the most efficient minimalist design. It's not exactly the same as a fashion, let's say, watch trend.
So since you just said that, I'm guessing that your first watch you were looking into were Germans. Germans are known for having some more simpler but efficient stuff.
It's actually very correct. One of the first watches that I was looking to buy was a dress watch, because again, I was looking for something very minimalist, and I was fascinated by the Bauhaus designs, right? So one of the watches that I really wanted to get was the Max Bill Junghans. Didn't get it because just didn't want to spend the money on it.
Great watch. I love that one. Even the chrono, love them. I like the classic one, not the new Form A's and stuff, but they're great watches.
I agree. They're beautiful watches, and I was looking at them for a while. I was also looking at Junkers. They also have a watch. I can't remember what the model name is. I think it's just a bunch of numbers. It's hard to remember. Very similar style, also a Bauhaus watch, right? I was looking at a lot of different styles. I started to discover Zinn, and the list goes on.
The German rabbit hole. But one thing you're saying, I want to say, so these fashion watches, they'll say, we'll do something minimal, unoffensive, trendy. Put some great straps, different colors, easy. But I think when you're saying Bauhaus, it's simplicity. But good Bauhaus is really well done too. So if you can do Bauhaus as a designer, you read design books about Bauhaus, or even I'll say it too. About you were talking about the Apple iWatch. Right? Is the iWatch? It's just the Apple Watch.
iWatch.
iWatch.
I have no idea.
The Apple Watch.
The Apple Watch by a company called Apple.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever they do.
The watch they make.
Have you heard of them?
Pretty big.
The designer to that watch was Mark Newsom, who is one of the more famous industrial designers. He also did the pen, Mark Newsom pen. He did a design for Mont Blanc. I had that pen. I returned it because it kept breaking. The reason why the pen had the thing to clip onto your shirt, and the way it was done, Mont Blanc actually does the clip where the top screws off and the piece of it comes down, and then the cap gets put back on to hold the clip. This one didn't have that. This one had a whole piece, and the prongs for the clip were inside it. So as soon as you would clip it onto your shirt, this whole prong system would just keep coming out 4 times. I had to bring it back. No disrespect. Beautiful design.
Doesn't work.
Had a lot of issues. But Bauhaus, when done well, I think is done great.
But maybe that's the good old saying that the designer dream is the engineer nightmare. Or that pen, right?
Who's they? Who says that? There's a lot of proverbs that he's like, you know what they say? Chicken of the cave. It's like, what? Bat is chicken of the cave.
Yes, it is. It tastes
So-
like chicken.
They.
They say it tastes like chicken.
So, Dmitri,
Yeah.
you went from German to buying what?
Well, so yes, correct. To answer your question, yes, I did really enjoy German watches, specifically the Bauhaus style, right? And then it quickly, what you like quickly changes. So I started off with the Max Bill, which I really, really liked, but at the time I just didn't have the money to spend on a watch, and I couldn't spend $2,000 on my first watch, right? Also, I believe when I just started liking watches and I started to research more and more, your tastes, they change extremely fast. So investing a lot of money right away just didn't seem to me like a very smart idea. So I started researching different other brands, and obviously Seiko was one of them because one of the greatest companies ever. They pretty much make every single watch you can think of, and they make their own mechanism. Everything is in-house, absolutely everything, right?
And they make him well.
And I stopped with the Seiko. I got an Orient Bambino, which is, I think is a Seiko subsidiary or the spin-off or something like that, right?
No, they're just owned by the same parent company. And a lot of people, they actually, I was doing some reading. They have nothing to do with each other.
Okay.
They're just both owned by Epson.
But right. Okay, yes. But don't Orient use some sort of a updated or changed mechanism that are
Maybe.
Seiko mechanisms?
Maybe.
I'll have to look it up.
Yeah. But I've heard that people go, oh, it's a Seiko because they're both owned by Epson, the umbrella.
Right.
But I've also heard we got nothing to do with them.
Well, it
Heard
just
that
seems economical to share
I'm sure they've-
knowledge, right? I'm sure it's not something
sure
that they do
design-
completely different.
and where they source parts
Right.
to make their movements.
Exactly.
I'm sure it's all the same. It's got to be.
So I bought 2 watches to start, and I think that they're technically my first watches because those are the first watches that I actually put thought into. A lot of thought, other than just the looks. The Orient I got was the Orient Bambino version 2, revision 3 or something like that. It's the one that looks the most minimalist of them all, that has rectangular hands. Again, I loved it when I bought it, but then I think 2 months in, I stopped liking it because my preferences evolved very quickly, and I sold it, I think, within 4 or 5 months from the purchase. The beautiful thing about those watches, first of all, it was very inexpensive. I think it was under 200 Canadian dollars, and I've sold it for maybe 150. So I barely lost any money on it. It was almost free to wear. And then the other watch that I bought almost immediately, I think a month apart, was the one that I liked a little bit less visually at the time, but I was very respectful of what the watch represents. It's obviously the world's famous Seiko SKX. I got the 007. Again, it's still my minimalist, let's say, ideas. I wanted to get something that's less flashy, right? If I was getting it today, I would have probably gotten the Pepsi version. But I got the all black bezel version. And reading from what it is and how it has a huge cult following, and obviously the famous YouTube channels are always praising it. I bought it. It was very bulky. It was something that I wanted to wear on the weekends, and something that I wanted to be, let's say, less worried about if I go wash my hands or go swim in a pool or something like that, right? And that watch specifically grew on me like crazy after the purchase. So it's the one that I've kept for a while. And the only reason I've sold it later was because I wanted to find ways to, let's say, offset the expense that I incurred on my Grail watch that I've purchased about a while later.
Boy, did it not make a dent.
It did not offset it one bit.
I will sell this watch for $500, and I will buy a watch.
Here's a Tic Tac.
But to this day, through we've talked about it, you still think about.
I still think, and I still occasionally look at the Pepsi, and I still go to a Long Island watch, and I still look for different variations of the custom double dome sapphire and the different bracelet, and I'm always very close at pressing add to cart, but I didn't do it because at that price, if you customize it and you get the double dome Pepsi with a custom bracelet, it is almost the Sumo money, and a Sumo is something that I've purchased instead, which is just a better quality watch overall, I think.
Do you consider, because they're discontinued, that you may turn around and say, you know what, before I'll just get it, keep it, wear it when I want, and then in 5 years when there's no more stock, sell it for twice the price?
Absolutely. I'm not at that point right now, but absolutely, I think this is a collectible watch. Give it maybe 10 years or so, right? It will be a very, very interesting watch for people to own. I would definitely consider buying it again, and I'm still monitoring prices. I don't think they're going up quite fast yet. They're still very available, those watches. Yeah. Maybe, and you know what? I want to get the most original, non-modded version with a bracelet for some reason. Not the leather band,
right.
Not the leather, sorry, the rubber band that the JDM version comes in. But I loved the horrible quality Seiko Jubilee bracelet.
Jingly.
It was really good.
Jingly jangly. Really jingly jangly.
So yeah, that's pretty much it for my story. There's a lot more to share about the watches that I bought later and the watches that I'm trying to buy and stuff that I like now, but I'll pass on the baton to Karl.
Yeah, no problem. So everything in my life is always turning around cars. You won't be surprised on that part. Dima was doing a super nice gesture towards me.
Gosh, your girlfriends must hate you. Everything's about the car.
All the time. Everything.
Can I ask you a question just about that?
Yeah,
have you ever let a girlfriend eat in your car?
So
other than your
so in that
it's like don't please don't. This is disgusting. Don't do this in my car. Let's pull over to this gas station.
I don't think he would be that calm. He'd be like, "Don't do this. Not in my car. What are you doing?"
So daily drivers, yes. Sports cars, no.
Right. Okay. But I'm hungry. No?
We'll stop at a restaurant. Like even same thing with drinking. No liquid.
Water? No liquid at all.
A bottle of water, it's closed. Like
so you're drinking it.
Yeah, but no, sports cars it's no liquid or no
fruit. I feel like I've driven you in my car and you were having something at some point.
Maybe, I don't know. Like if you tell me no, I'm not gonna eat it.
We're gonna edit that.
No, it's gonna stay in.
Yeah, we'll just unplug your mic next time.
So, when I was younger, I guess around 8 years old.
Could you be younger than you already are? Is that even possible?
Well, technically, yes.
Is this like BC AD type thing?
Yeah, nothing existed before your age. This is ridiculous.
So, when I was younger, around 8 or 9, my dad was a managing director for a Mazda dealership here in Montreal. And he was never getting a babysitter. So every time I was at his place, he was just come to work with me, right? If it's summertime, for example. So I was at the dealership, I don't know, 9 hours a day, every week, every day, Monday to Friday, just during the summer trying to kill time. And I remember clearly till to this day that the salesman always has like goals, right? So this month the best salesman win, I don't know, gas card or dinner somewhere or something. But the bonus end of year, the best salesman was winning a watch. And I remember my dad telling me that, those watches are really good for this and that reason. And when a salesman's wearing a tag, it's because he's the best. And it stuck with me. I remember to this day, like the tags they were wearing, right? The colors and everything. Around the same time, I remember too that the owner of the Mazda dealership was wearing an Omega. And my dad was telling me that because for him, that was the best brand in the world.
Which Omega did he have?
That I don't remember.
And those tags, I'm curious, were they Chronos or were they?
They were Chronos. So I'm guessing tag or like Orange Boy type of.
There's a bunch of Carreras of Carreras have a bunch of. Which makes sense. Carrera means like race,
like
right?
blue, white, and sometimes orange, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah, I remember my dad saying that all the time, right? So tags are for good salesmen and Omegas are for owners, type of thing.
And spacemen.
You did tell me that then, but now I know, yes.
Those are bulletins.
But it is true. It's written.
Yeah, well,
they say it's for spacemen.
So aside of that too, I was always going to races. So F1 here in Montreal, NASCAR in the US, and GT in Trois-Rivières to have Le Mans series and all those things. And all these sponsors were always Rolex or Tag. No one else, right? And it was everywhere.
And now Richard Mille everywhere.
Yeah, in F1, yes, sponsoring the series. But like, if you look, side note, if you look to Bell and Ross is sponsoring Renault F1 team.
Bell and Ross is, I love that brand.
Yeah, so it was Rolex everywhere, and every time on the podium.
I was sorry. Wasn't it also IWC? That's a big sponsor of F1,
or
right?
Benz.
I think that I've seen. Oh yeah, you're right. I've seen them wear gloves, and they have a watch printed on the glove.
So that's Mercedes AMG F1 team.
Oh, right.
Doesn't Lewis Hamilton wear an IWC?
He's sponsored by them.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
They all wear them at some point. They all have Rolexes, and they all get paid or whatever contracted to always wear Richard Mille.
So Richard Mille is sponsoring the F1 series. But every team has their own sponsored.
Right.
Benz is IWC, Renault is Bell and Ross, and there's other brands too.
Bell and Ross is great. I just have to say.
So yeah, and every time all the drivers on those podium were wearing Rolexes or tags, right? And my dad was like, "When you win in life, that's what you have." Type of conversation with me, right? And my dad had a tag. It's the only watch I ever see from really close when I was that age. But yeah, it stuck with me, and I was like super young. But after that, grew up for the next 15 years. I was playing music, working on cars. I didn't really think about watches. They're always there, but no one near me was a watch nerd or watch geek, right? So I wasn't never in conversation until I met Kevin, that's sitting on this table. Worst day of my life. Like, it could not be worse.
Well, most people's lives.
I could make it worse if you want.
Please don't.
Let me show you.
And yeah, it was a pool party, and you were wearing a tag, I think. And I remember saying something like, "Hey, nice tag."
Bottomless pool party.
Exactly.
Those are his forte.
And what he noticed was my watch.
Yeah, and
nothing else was.
I was like, "Hey, thanks, nice penis."
So I go, "Hey, nice tag," and I didn't even finish my sentence, and I think you went on a monologue for like 2 hours on why the watch was so nice.
Thankfully, you were about to leave, and you just proceeded to go to your car.
Pretty much.
Where I followed him.
He followed me to that car, called me after that. But yeah, that opened a huge kind of worm, and we start talking about watches more and more, and you're starting asking me good questions on what I look into watches and all those things, right?
But to your credit, you had great taste right away. Like, most people will come and say, "Hey, I found this kind of watch, this." He's sending me Jaeger Lecoult's like master controls, or he was showing me, what was it, the one that you sent me? I was like, this is ridiculous. It was like a $30,000 watch. I go, yeah, of course you like this watch.
Yeah, probably Count de Vache from Vacheron.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. El Primero.
Reverso, maybe? The
Reverso?
Two face.
Yeah.
Yeah, Reverso, only reason I really like it is because it's slipping.
Yeah.
Both sides. If it wasn't
What a
for
great
that,
story.
Yeah, good story. Perfect story.
Batman wears that watch, right? Christian Bale wears that.
He does?
In Batman Begin, he wears a...
Oh, wow, okay. Maybe I missed it.
Yeah.
I was focused on his muscular physique too much.
Take it off.
Yeah, so...
When is he going to take it off?
So yeah, and that was 4 years ago almost now, I think. And yeah, I have like 6 or 8 watches now, and I'm looking to buy more, and it's a problem, I think. Or it's a good thing, I don't know yet.
To a lot of people, it's a problem. To us, it's good.
Okay, perfect. So it's good. It's a good thing. But yeah, that's my...
Just look for things to validate your problem, right?
Exactly, right?
So it doesn't sound
thank
like
you
a
guys.
problem.
Now I know it's good.
Like you're not the only one. So that makes it okay.
There are dozens of us.
It's like an AA meeting. Hi, I'm Karl.
Yeah. Hey, Karl.
Except this is a BBC meeting.
Yeah, it's a BBC. Not to confuse with the British one or the other one.
They could also be British.
Yeah, British.
You know, of all the BBCs, this is definitely the lowest. And there's probably so many more that we
This
don't
is
even
probably
realize.
the smallest BBC.
I'm not going to Google it, though. I'm good.
I tried earlier on Spotify to see, and when you type BBC, it's
The
British one.
And were you
there's
satisfied with the results?
There's one trap song too that's named BBC. So.
trap song?
Yeah.
Could you please,
What's a trap song? A song that traps you?
asking for a friend, could you please share?
It's a style of music mainly used for
Yeah,
rap.
Dmitri does. Let's ask for Dmitri. What is? I know what it means. Of course. What is trap song?
It's well, what we could call like new day rap, I guess, in some ways.
Why don't
I
they
don't know.
just
Do
call
you
it
know
New Day
DJ
Rap?
Carnage?
Can you just call it rap?
Or new day rap?
No, it's different. Anyway, after the podcast, let's go take a listen.
Sure.
Okay.
So yeah, that was my quick reason how I love watches. So I'll send that to Kevin. Kevin.
All right. So my story is relatively short and well packaged. I'm just going to kind of go through like the journey and the milestones, I guess. So I think I got into watches about 10 years ago.
Unless we interrupt.
Yes, of
It'll
course.
be very short.
So I got into watches about 10 years ago, I'd say now. And throughout those 10 years, I had a different milestones and what they kind of represent. It kind of like ruined me for this, with this hobby, allowing me to fall deeper and deeper in the rabbit hole. To your story, Karl, my first great watch, I would say, was when I graduated from uni. It was a gift, and it was that tag.
The first great watch that you encountered, or just the first great watch you got?
The first great milestone. That's what I'm going to say. So what it meant to get that watch. So it was good, a great watch. You know, is a stretch by any means. Based on what I know now. You know, so based on what I know now versus what I knew then. So it was a great diver. I had Tag Heuer 300 meter yellow second hand bullseye dial, beautiful watch. And as a recently graduated student, I mean that was I was considered myself spoiled, you know. And it brought me down. And I think what this hobby does, it bringing you down in the rabbit hole, I mentioned, is that now being so into watches, literally there are some pieces that we talk about that are like 7 or 10 grand, and we use terms like value proposition. That's a good value for 10 grand.
I
No,
agree.
it's not.
I agree. And then the more you like, just to give an example from my own, I think learning curve there. The more you look at a particular piece of a watch, right? Let's say you like a specific dial, right? But then you quickly realize what differentiates a nice dial versus a cheaper dial versus a very good dial, right?
Really good.
Applied markings and a different texture, and then the way it plays with the light, and like this is where the rabbit hole starts.
So you're saying that the Grand Seiko I'm looking at right now, it's not great value? I'll take that as disrespect.
What do you mean? It's not great value.
It's almost 10 grand.
That's why I say it's a value proposition.
Oh.
To us, I think it's great value, but to anyone who would say $7,000 for a watch, this is ridiculous. That's not a value proposition.
Well,
Because it's like, oh, it's good because you get so much watch for so little. And it's not little. $7,000 is not cheap for a watch.
I know people that they will refuse to pay over $100 for a watch, and they think that everyone who does so is an idiot.
That's right.
Because you can get the perfect function from a watch for $50
G-Shock.
max, right?
Exactly.
And it will last forever.
Yeah.
And anybody who pays more is making a huge mistake.
Ridiculous. Yeah. So that's what I mean. We use terms like value propositions.
Yeah.
Like that's not a value proposition.
It's okay. I was just not listening.
That's actually a very interesting segue. What is a value proposition to you?
So I'll give you a ridiculous value proposition. Habring, so the guy who was at IWC, who created their split-second chronograph, that watch retails at IWC for like $30K, and he created that movement, went and created his own company, and he creates an in-house split-second chronograph for like $10K. Purely Swiss, purely in-house. He makes incredibly high, complex orology, like high orology movements for a fraction of the price of the other. And I think that's what Seiko does very well. When you look at their SARB 033 that I have, and you put it side to side with, I don't know, a Rolex Oyster Perpetual, because they're very similar, the value proposition is saying, well, for $500 versus $5,000, look at what you can get. And is it literally, 10 times better? I don't know. Maybe.
So it's fair to say that a value proposition to you is basically the amount of what you can get for a specific price comparing to other watches in the same price category.
Yes.
Okay.
Or different category that may be higher. Because if I can get it
Absolutely.
instead of, that's what I mean by the proposition.
Right. That's why it has to be in a particular price bracket, right? Yeah. Because you can have a value of watch for $100 and $50,000, right?
Right.
Okay, that makes sense, and I completely agree.
Yeah.
Would you consider, let's say, a Rolex diver a value proposition because it's just something that will never lose any value, or no?
Yeah. I'll say yes, because if you get it at MSRP, if you don't, probably not.
Which is impossible. I think this is the reason why it's expensive, right? It's because it's impossible to purchase it.
That's a piece of it, yeah, absolutely. The demand and supply, yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
So, Kevin, you were saying you're spoiled. Just newly graduated with your
spoiled,
tag,
yeah.
right? And right after that,
my next milestone after that, and we'll talk about the journey in between another time. But my next milestone, I would say, is my Nomos Tangente, the Nomos. Big moment for me. I think it's a real 38 millimeter watch, fully in-house movement, Bauhaus, modern, sleek. And I would say it was definitely my first watch that was reserved for enthusiasts. It wasn't a big brand. Like Nomos is coming up and it's getting more, it's making a lot more noise. But it's not something that's eye-catching. It's not flashy. And which is something I used to like. I was like, God, that watch looks really good. Not to say Nomos doesn't. I love my Nomos. But I think that watch is more of an enthusiast watch. And I think it's that cool moment. And Dmitri had it with the Seiko Alpinist. So when someone comes up to you and goes, hey, that's a Nomos. That's really nice. And I was at a shop, actually. And he has Tutima. He was at the watch show we were at, the watch fair. It was a great little shop.
The Montreal Watch Fair, right? That was the first one in Montreal too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you were saying it was your Tangente was your second milestone, right?
Yeah. And the guy literally says, "Oh, is that a Nomos?" And followed by, "Good for you," So from someone who works at a shop and whatnot, and he knows his stuff. He's like, "Oh, good for you." And he actually carried a lot of Glacute brands. He had Tutema And he had, what was the other one that he said they should really, gosh, what was it? I think he Mühle, but he had a couple of brands that are from Glashütte, and he had a fair amount of German brands. He had Bremont as well at his shop. But he was really into watches from Glashütte. He loved them. And I think he was talking about a specific brand. He said they just didn't market well. Not like Nomos did. Nomos was like that boutique brand. They were one of those brands that they didn't install themselves in retailers. They just put themselves online. You want to watch? Buy it from us. And they had great customer service. Great. Really great. And now they're more in the retail space.
Yeah, but it's a good way of keeping an eye on your customer service when you sell everything straight from the factory, right?
Absolutely. And more so than that, their line, so I have trouble with their line now. I think that they've taken a weird tangent in their design language, in their offering. And it's not vibing with me too much. But, I love what they're bold in what they're trying, and especially in an industry that is tough to break through. It's tough to be respected. It's tough to make a mark. It's tough to get out there and really become, to make that impact. And I think Nomos is one of those that they're very loved, and I think that there are a lot of people that don't like them as well. There are, like you see them, but I think they took a risk. They went they make some really, really great pieces. They really took some bold moves going in-house. They make some, they now have a sports watch, right? And I don't know if you've tried it on, that Tangente Neomatic, that's 42 millimeter sports watch they have. And that bracelet, you saw it. We were together when we went to, we were looking at.
Well, we went to the retailer here in Montreal who have Nomos and Patek Philippe, right?
Yeah. Laurent Ferrier and Laurent Ferrier, no, they have Parmigiani.
Yeah, the only thing I remember is I was looking for a Club Campus 38, and I tried all the watches that are worth more than my yearly salary.
38 or 36?
38.
38. And this is one thing, guys, if you're listening, if you've never tried a Nomos, and you think 38 may be small, or even 36, the thing about Nomos is that their watches, because of their Bauhaus, have almost no bezel. So 38 wears really big on your wrist. So if ever you get a chance, go try on a Nomos. So my next milestone, I would say, was my first large purchase, my own, really, where I put in a substantial amount of money, was my Panerai radio mirror. And it represented to me that moment I took investment into luxury, long-standing history, because Nomos is from the 90s, expensive watch. And I also think that what this watch brought to me was my first connection I made with a brand's history and the form and function. So 1860, Florence, designed in Milan. They took Rolex pocket watch movements, shoved them into these large cases, gave them to the Italian military, the frogmen, large stature. Their identity is rooted in their design language, and I think that was what was most important to me. And I think that through my evolution or growth into watches, what the watchmakers are trying to say with their creativeness, what they put into their pieces, I find that's what speaks to me the most, because I feel that's what I make a connection with. And it's like their way to reach out. And if I like it, I'll reach back, right? So if I feel that connection, and if I can afford to, I'll reach back and maybe buy it, so to speak. So for Panerai, I have never felt that they were trying to mimic someone else. They just want to create their own look and design. And I do feel that they were able to accomplish that. Their design language was unique. And I mean, they had runs with sterile dials, California dials, and they've made stride in their movements, which was part of my resistance. Because before, they were just putting in ETA movements that didn't hack. And I'm like, gosh, it just seems so like, and you could find that movement in a really affordable watch. And like, okay, so I'm really just paying for the brand. I'm really just paying for the aesthetics. And at one point I was like, okay, I don't, it was hard to take that jump. And then when they came out with their in-house movement, it was hand wind, 3-day power reserve, and it had a low beat, so it was high torque, allowing it, and now watching them do in-house minute repeater tourbillons, like horologie, I was like, gosh, that's really cool. And then watching videos on their production process, it's worth your time. So there's a concept I was reading about where back in the day, when you used to be shopping for watches, you'd always be thinking, what was the next big thing? Almost like technology, right? But now with watches, you don't have to do that, because the watch you have now is never going to become obsolete. It's going to stick around, and I think that I find myself, what I love about it, and I think this was really is like when I look down at my watch, I think that these inside the movement itself, it's like this tiny city, like of bridges, pinions, and wheels, and it's going on. It's all working, 30,000 beats an hour. And even when I'm in this, working and running around doing everything, I find it really cool and structured what's going on my wrist. I don't know why. I find that very comforting. And I would say that my last milestone that stood out was my Rolex Milgauss Z Blue. And for many, including myself, I do think it's the apex. Like, I don't know if there's anything higher I might go to. Too much higher, we'll see. But this one is not like the normals. This one is flashy and loud, and it has presence, and it's detested by many people out there. They go, why did they make this watch?
It's a polarizing watch for sure.
Oh, yeah.
For me, what makes that watch is the green hue and the crystal and the Thunderbolt orange.
It's a green crystal and a blue dial.
Yeah.
So it's just like in the sunlight, it's crazy.
It's interesting how that works for some people. And I'll be honest, I really like that watch, but I've never looked at it as something that I would buy, right? Just because those colors don't speak to me as much, right? Right. But it is interesting how it is exactly like you said, it's polarizing, right? You don't have people that are just like, yeah, that's nice. You will have people that love it or people that just dislike it.
And the same for the Air King, you like a lot.
I like the Air King. Yeah. People say that there's too many fives on it.
Yeah, that's what that's the first thing I told you.
I like the Air King. I'll be honest. I think I pretty much like all the Rolexes, right?
Because no one can really see what we're talking about is the new Air King. So the Air King used to be a very understated, subdued watch. We're talking about the new one in that
bold numbers. All of them have fives in it.
So the one from the super fast, the something hound car, the supersonic
Bloodhound.
The Bloodhound, exactly, and the
supersonic
dials,
car.
The supersonic car, yeah,
fastest cars on the ground.
On the ground, yeah. So it had Rolex dials, and they took that dial inspiration. So it has that like really royal Rolex green.
But to go back to your Milgauss, one thing I like about that watch is even if someone likes watches in general but don't like this one, is going to see it and is going to talk to you about it.
Yes,
it's impossible not to say anything.
No, it's hard.
Like, if you know watches and you see a Milgauss, like it, hate it, you're going to talk about that.
Oh yeah, dude, that's a... Let me see your Milgauss. Let me see that.
And like people are going to say, I don't like it because of this or that, and they're going to talk to you.
It's because what you're doing, you're peacocking.
Yeah.
If you remember, there was this guy, right, from, 10, 15 years ago that was talking about the concepts of like picking up women.
Yeah.
Right, and this is basically, you have to really have something very flashy, right, loud, that speaks to everybody, regardless of whatever it is, a positive or negative. It inspires conversation.
I agree.
But the sports cars, like Dmitri and I went for a beer last week in the old port in Montreal here, and it was like flashy cars after flashy cars.
Yeah, a lot of Lamborghinis. Yeah. They're pretty much as flashy as it gets, right? I guess at a price that's not, let's say, impossible.
Yeah,
definitely more.
Well, I'd say
accessible.
If you can buy a house, you can buy a Lamborghini.
Well, yeah, but can you
live in a Lamborghini?
Can you put a dishwasher into a Lamborghini? I don't think so. How big is the freezer that you can fit into a Lamborghini?
Like if you think the other around, right? Like people buy a house and have cars on payment, Like it's small payments, right? You go the other way around. You have big payments for a Lamborghini and small payments for what you're renting, like an apartment or
Which is
something.
bankrupt. Yeah.
But who lives in an apartment with a Lamborghini, right? Unless the
Yeah,
apartment.
I think a Lamborghini should be outside at least, not in the apartment.
Most Lamborghini owners.
Yeah, exactly. But they have like penthouses and stuff.
Yeah.
Like that.
So your Milkas. After that, do we know what's the next milestone?
Watch? I think this is for another episode. We'll start talking about what the next watch will be. Yeah, what the next milestone will be. But
Okay.
that's that milestone. And to be honest, I think there are days I'm oversaturated with content and emotions on how I feel.
For me, I'll say it's simple. If I survive COVID-19, I'll buy a watch.
There you go. Good for you.
And do you want to say which one it is? Or do you want to save it for the next?
I can save it for the next time, but I already talked about it a bit earlier. So
Let's leave our listeners with something to look forward to.
Yeah.
Otherwise, nobody's ever going to listen
listeners,
to it.
us three, right? That's who's going to listen to it.
Well, to finish off here, like I was just saying, right now, I'm working to reduce my collection. I really want to get it down. I'm changing my approach where I buy one, I get rid of one. And I think this extends outside of my...
That's not going down.
You didn't start with that approach because you managed to accumulate a lot of watches.
But what I also want to say, the caveat there is I also want to use my watches to fund one. So if I consolidate 4 to 5 and I buy one, something's leaving, something's coming in, but it's not one for one. But I think that the last thing I want to say, I just feel that, where I am, I don't think that my love for watches or anything about it, I think it's growth. It's done in terms of how big it can be. I do think it continues to morph itself, but I don't feel like I can love watches any more than I do now, honestly.
Well, what do you mean? Are you meaning in the sense of like how complicated the watches are, or in something else?
No, I think it's how much room it takes up in my life. You know what I mean? Like I just think it's like, oh, how much? Like really, unless I quit my job and sold watches for a living, maybe. But other than that, I think that it's what I used when I'm just relaxing. It's how I unwind. Just enjoy it. Yeah.
Just to add to that, right? And I think my love of watches it's still evolving, but where it's going, it's not necessarily going in terms of the more unique and expensive, let's say, watches. It's always going into the more interesting or even vintage, I would say, designs, right? Something that's very specific, particular, or unique again. That I think that I'm starting to like more and more, right? Like I've started off with not liking the reversos at all. And then now I'm seriously looking at it and thinking that maybe one day I'll purchase one.
I find myself more attracted these days to house brands and small shops and something that's a little bit more character, I'd say. Not someone who's trying to do a money grab. I like that. I don't know. I think that it speaks to me more to have that kind of relationship.
I agree but for me, for example, I found that you have to really learn first to understand the pieces of the watch very well, right? The mechanisms, what makes a good mechanism, and the case and stuff, before you can appreciate micro brands, because it's very easy to buy a fashion watch, right? If you don't know what you're doing, and not necessarily a good value.
Look, today they released this mechanical Timex 36 millimeter. Very nice. I think it's a little ornate. If you look it up, the 36 millimeter Timex mechanical, it's a military inspired manual wind. You look at it by all means, it's not necessarily the best value. You can get more.
Yeah, I think we'll be able to talk about those one maybe on the next podcast. I think you're talking about unwinding a bit earlier. I think it's time for unwinding and saying goodbye.
Yeah.
So thank you for listening to the BBC that we named the Big Black Clock Podcast.
It's a mouthful.
It's nice how it always takes you an extra second to say it right.
Yes, I do not want to make a mistake there. So it was Karl, Kevin, and Dmitri. We'll talk to you another time. Have a good day.
Cheers.
See you next time.